I would love. Dr. Pendo, you're welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Am I sharing the screen? The
Yes.
title, which screen do you see in?
Okay, the heading is research subjects or participants.
That's not the first one. I'm trying to go to the first slide that like something is stuck in somewhere. Aha, okay. Can you read the slide that says how to write a research proposal?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so. Okay, there we are. Okay, so as I've been introduced, my name is Pendo Ndaki. I'm from KUHAS. So today I'm going to take you through how to write a research proposal. Can you hear my voice, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so we are at one page. Okay, so today we're going to talk on how to write a research proposal. We know that there are different proposals. You can be writing a proposal, maybe you want to get funds, or so that we say that a proposal of a project. But today we're going to I will take you through a research proposal. So just on how to write a proposal. So the first part is a proposal. So maybe we should ask ourselves that why should we learn how to write a proposal? So we have some reasons. I'm trying to hide some things here. Okay. So reason for writing a research proposal. So we may have different reasons, but here I have some of them. First of all, we need to write a good research proposal because we wanted to convince others that others do not know what we wanted to write, but we are writing a proposal because we wanted to convince others that we have a good research idea. And that not only that we have an idea, but also we understand the area that we wanted to research, but also we have the sound methodology, that you have an idea, but also you understand the idea, but also you know how you're going to correct the information about the idea that you have. And also another reason is to tell others what you wanted to do and the reasons behind. And how are you going to do that research? And also another reason is to tell others that you will add a new aspect to their scientific domain. In other words, that we are not doing a research that will add nothing. So unless we are sure that what I'm going to do, the research that I'm going to do will add something on the scientific domain or in the body of research, that the information that we already have, we need to convince others that what we're going to do is important and is new, and that it will add some insights. Also, sometimes we may, as I've said before, that we may need to write a proposal because we are looking for funding. Sorry, this teachers. But let's see, there are other proposals that are not clear. So let's see the characteristic of the proposal that is not clear. For example, when you say that I wanted to work on a better system for delivering maternal health services. This is not clear because when you say that better system, there are many better systems. So, but we need to be specific in what we want to tell others, that they may know what we wanted to research on. So this kind of title, this kind of research is discouraged, but also this is discouraged because we needed to identify the real problem that we wanted to research on. But also, for example, we may say that maybe I wanted to solve the problem of HIV infection. This is too aspirational because this is too high. This is too general. This is too broad. Yes, it's a good idea, but it's too broad. So just saying this is not enough because we needed to convince people that what we're going to do is very specific and that we are able to do that. For example, this title, when you say that you wanted to solve the problem of HIV, this is not clear. So the kind of this proposal is discouraged because the kind like this, it's just showing the end result that you wanted to solve. But in the research proposal, we are just telling people that we have a problem. That is what we were telling people, what we wanted to research on, not what we wanted to solve exactly. So this again is discouraged. So let's see the ideal proposal now. That you may say that here is a well-defined problem, that you have a real problem that you needed to define very well in your proposal. And also, you needed to show the importance of that problem with evidence. For example, you may say that you're going to research on something because it is important, maybe because people are dying because of that problem. So that makes to be important that because you may, it's important because maybe people are dying and you have evidence. You cannot say a problem without having evidence. And also, in writing a proposal, you are promising the idea that the idea is promising, that what you're going to do is promising, that it is going maybe to solve a certain problem. And again, you need to have evidence. And also in your proposal, you need to convince others that you are smart enough as a researcher. We'll see later how you need to tell people that you can do that research. And also, yeah, in that proposal, it's like you're saying that here is what I hope to achieve. Because it's not just enough to say that you're going to research on something, but you need to say what you're going to achieve from that research. And also you're telling the plan of what you're going to research on. So there should be a clear plan. So let's see now the components of the research proposal. So research proposal has different parts, but the main parts is that in red, that the introduction, the literature review, and the methodology. But before the introduction, there are preliminaries that we need to write on the research proposal. That you need to have the title page. We will see what is included in the title page. Also, you need to include the abstract, the declaration, table of content, abbreviation, operational definitions. These are preliminaries that they needed to come before the main part. Now, the main part of the proposal, it has 3 main parts, as I've said, that we have the introduction, we have the literature review, we have the methodology, And also there are other parts that we can include that are very important. So let's see in detail in each part, but we'll consider, we'll focus more on the introduction, on the literature review, and on the methodology, because these are the main parts of the research proposal. Again, remember that the research proposal aims to convince others on what we're going to do. You need to tell others on what you're going to do and then on how. So this is the title page. That in the title page, there are things that you need to include. The title page of your proposal. First of all, the title page should show the proposed research title. And also the research title could have the subtitle. So the title should be seen in the title page. And also the name of the institution to which the proposal is submitted. For example, maybe you're a student at PUHAS and then you wanted to submit your proposal. You need to write the institution, for example, maybe the university or anywhere that you are submitting that proposal. You need to write the name of where you are submitting that proposal. This again is still in the title page, but also need to write the name of the school. For example, in the university, you can have that there's certain university, but it has different schools. So you write the name of the school where you're going to submit your proposal. Also, you need to write your personal information. Write your name, write your registration number if you're a student, and also you can write your title. If you're a doctor, you can write your title, or miss, just include to write that is your personal information. But again, write your supervisors. We need to know your supervisors. Write your name, their names, and their qualifications. If they are medical doctors, if they are, just write their qualifications as academicians, and also write their affiliation. Maybe if they come from the University of Dar es Salaam, just needed to write they come from Catholic University of PUHAS, just write. You need to know your supervisors so that you may know that they are the right people to supervise you. Also write the reason for submitting the proposal. For example, you're submitting this proposal, maybe because it's a Master of Science or PhD, just give us the reason. Also, in the title page, include the date of the proposal submission. So this is just some of, these are the important information that you need to write in your first page of your proposal. For example, here is an example of a title page. There is a title and it has subtitle. And also you have seen all that we say that we need that you can put in the title page. We see that the name of the university, the school, the name of the student and the registration numbers, the supervisors, and the reason for submitting your proposal, and also the date of submission. So now let's see about the title. When we are writing the title, there are things that you need to consider. That the title should be short, accurate, and concise. For example, when we say short, how short is short? Others, they may say that it's like maybe 19 words average. So the title should be accurate and short. When you say concise, that you include it might maybe it may have this, for example, this 19 words, but this 19 words there, or maybe you can just a big idea, but you are summarizing them in a sense that they are understood. Just you're not using the unnecessary words so that you can understand. Also, in the title, you need to remember that as you write your proposal, you may find yourself that you initially you had a certain proposal, but as you write, you may revise your proposal. So the proposal is not static; it can be revised because as you go on reading and writing, maybe you can think that maybe I need to change this title. Not really changing, just revising it as you read. So the title can be revised as you go on. And also the title should be descriptive. It should make the central objective and variables of the study clear to the reader. So when the reader reads your title, should know exactly what you're going to do. Not that maybe waiting that, okay, maybe the reader will read it and will see what I'm going to do. No. The variables that you're going to do should be seen in the title. For example, maybe the study population should be seen in the title. Maybe the study area should be seen, the title, maybe so what you're going to do should be seen in the title. So the title should be descriptive, it should have all the important information. The title provides the keywords. So the keywords should be seen in the title. For example, you're going to do maybe on the, you're going to do your study maybe in the antimicrobial resistance. So we should see there. Maybe what about the antimicrobial resistance? We're going to talk about the drivers of antimicrobial resistance, should be there. So all the important words should be seen in the title. Again, it is important to specify what population will be investigated. That's what we are saying, that it should be descriptive, that we need to see all the important information in the title. So this is the good title. And let's see the criticism of the title. For example, when you say that maybe you're going to research on the heart failure in diabetes, or tuberculosis in HIV-infected children. This is not descriptive because there are many information that are not seen as we have seen. The abstract, again, this is abstract, the summary, and then this is written at the end. That you have written your proposal, then at the end, then you come at the abstract. Though the abstract in the structure is at the beginning, in the beginning, but you can write at the end. So declaration, again, you need to sign, the supervisor and student, you need to sign that this is the original work. And the table of content, you need to include that you need to locate each session, and also the tables and figures should be included, that where you need to write the pages, where should we see. So let's go now to the introduction. Here in the preliminaries, I just talked about some few things. There are others, like the abbreviations that is known, maybe the operational definition that you can include. But let's see now the heart of the research proposal. And we say that introduction is the first that we need to consider. So in the introduction, we need to state the research problem. What are we going to start on? What is the real problem? Should be seen in the introduction. But also we need to provide the context in such a way that it shows its necessity and importance. That when you talk about the context, we need to find what the others have done about this. What is happening about this problem? So we need to show the context of this problem. And so we need to show the introductory review of the literature should be selective and not overwhelming. So in the introduction, we're just putting just some few literature review just to show the context of the problem. For example, we may show the magnitude. There's this health problem. How many people are dying? Where? What is the cause of this problem? And what has been researched? What is remaining? So just to show the context of that problem. And also, in this part, you need to present the rationale of your proposed study and indicate why it is worthy doing. So show the reason. Why is it worth doing? And in the health research, we normally consider that maybe many people are dying, many people are getting sick. And when you say many, that you need to indicate the numbers. And maybe the number is increasing year by year. We need to show all this. So again, we need to state your hypothesis or theory that will guide you. The theory is commonly used for the qualitative studies, and the hypothesis is used in the quantitative studies, just like to predict what you're going to find. That this will guide you. Also, set the delimitation and the boundaries of your proposed research in order to provide a clear focus. So just show the focus where you're going to of your study, because you may find that there are other, you may just have that, maybe you're going just to talk on something, you need just to specify what is your focus on that. So this should be seen in the introduction. Before we go to the next slide, we need to consider that in this introduction, when we're showing that the problem, sometimes it's good just to begin with the geographical location. So begin with the broader geographical location. Maybe what is the problem maybe across the world. Maybe then you narrow what is the problem in Africa. Then maybe what is the problem maybe in Tanzania, and maybe in where you're going to study. So just to put in the context of the study, just by considering also the geographical location. So as you write your introduction, do not assume that your reader is familiar with your subject. So that's why you need to convince them. You need to let them know what you wanted to research on. And do not overstate that maybe you're saying that, okay, this problem is very, very good. No, just tell them that what is happening, they are the ones to know what is happening, because you are telling them what is happening. And also do not repeat that. As you write this introduction, let's avoid repeating. And a lot depends on your creativity, your ability to think clearly, and depth of your understanding of the problem. Again, your readers do not know what you are trying to research. Try to hot hot areas or the areas with remain viable. So not just writing a proposal, but just finding an area that is hot, which is new, or even if it's old, what is remaining? They have researched on this, but what is remaining? This part establishes your credibility as a researcher. So credibility as a researcher, that you know the area that you wanted to research on, that you have read. And sometimes you may find, I heard that one person was saying that before you do before maybe you write a proposal, you need to read some articles, maybe 100 articles, just to know what you wanted to research on, just to know the context. And that was a introduction. So after the introduction, it's now the problem statement. In the problem statement, you needed to detail the analysis of the problem you wanted to explore. Just again, tell us what is the problem, and also tell us a statement of the work to be undertaken. Let us know what you wanted to do, documentation of the need for that work, and quote a few previous studies so that the reader can understand the relevance of your work. And also let them know what you can improve from what you're going to do. So this is a problem statement. So in summary, I can say that just tell them about the problem. Let them know what has been done. And also let them know what is remaining to be done. And what do you think that is remaining can help, maybe can improve the situation. So that's what you're going to do. So, and as you write that problem statement, you need to consider the statistical data. So give us the statistics, give us the numbers. If people are dying, how many of them are dying and where? So, and if collaboration is needed to undertake the study, so just mention it. Maybe that you're working with the others, so just let us know. Refer to the other parts of the proposal, which are the objectives, the methodology, to give an idea of the reader that is manageable. Here we're saying that what you're writing should reflect the objectives and also the methodology that you're going to apply. Let's see now the logical sequence for presenting the statement. So can you follow this this pattern? That maybe you write the magnitude of the problem, frequency, and distribution. That you're explaining how big is the problem, how many people are dying, and also where is this problem maybe very common compared maybe to others. For example, there are many studies that we do in the low and middle income countries. You may find that maybe in Tanzania they are common in the low and middle income countries as you compare maybe with the other sessions, so with other parts of the world. So we needed to explain this. Also, we need to show the determinants, the probable causes of the problem. So what is the current knowledge of the problem and its causes? So we need to explain what are the causes. And you need to explain that if these causes, are the researchers agree in these causes? Is there consensus or there are controversy? Maybe others, they say that these are the causes, and maybe others, they reject and they have the other causes. So you need to explain if there is a consensus or there is controversy. Is there conclusive evidence? So in this, what they are saying, we need to show the evidence. So the probable causes should not just read maybe in some few literatures, but you need just to broadly read and get the determinants or the causes. Also, we need to write the possible solutions. But we have seen that it is a problem. What are the possible solutions? And also, we need to write the unanswered questions. So in the here and there, unanswered questions is where now you're going to do your research on. So just mark on these 4 points. Writing a statement sometimes can be tricky to most of us, but we need to consider, if we consider these 4 parts, it can make our work easier. So just write the problem, just write the causes, write the possible solutions, and the unanswered questions. And here is where you're going to write your study. So you're going to focus. So from the unanswered questions, that's where you are going to, you're proposing that maybe you're going now to do a research in that unanswered questions. And also in the proposal, we need to consider the objectives. Objective anticipated outcomes of the research. That when you go to the, when we do a research, what are you going to obtain from the research that you're going to do? So these are objectives. So we need to have objectives. And in the objectives, we have a broad objective, and also we have the specific objectives. The broad and the specific objective is like we're getting there, is part of the broad objective. That the broad objective, you have the big idea, but also in the specific objectives, you have the you have the parts of this broad objective. So the objective, they reflect the problem statement adequately. So specific and achievable, they are measurable. That they are measurable, that after getting the information that you're going to research on, they will be able to measure that this was my objective, and this is what I got. So you can measure that this is what I was researching on. So all this you're proposing, you're telling us that you know what you're going to do. Also, the proposal can be phrased as questions to be answered. So we need to also can be presented as a list with each objective consistence of just a few sentences. And normally in the objective, just have one sentence. We'll see how we write these objectives. And the rest of the objective can be chronological, that you may be going to start with the first objective and then you go to the second objective. So they can be chronological, so according to the order or in the order of importance. Also, the objectives, they should be consistent with the methodology section. And also we need to write the list of variable and their expected association. So how we can state the objectives? So we state the objective by using the action verbs that are specific enough to be measured. For example, we may say that to determine. We're going to determine this and this, you're going to compare. So this we're using the action verb, but they're vague non-action verb. For example, when you say that you're going to appreciate, maybe the objective of this study is to appreciate or to understanding. These are not clear. So we need to just to put an action verb. That's what you're going to do. You're going to examine, you're going to assess. So for example, here we have an example here that on your objective now, you have the general objective, that the general objective is to assess the factors influencing utilization of maternal health care services in District X. So your aim, your general objective is to assess the factors influencing utilization of maternal health services in District X. So the specific objectives, now these are parts of the general objective that you break into sessions, the general objective. For example, one, in the assessment, you're saying that you're going to get the knowledge, attitude, and practices. And also the second, you're going to identify the factors that influence women attending at antenatal care, to identify the source of delivery service and the mother's preference of place of delivery, both to determine coverage with antenatal care and entity vaccination among mothers. So maybe you can read and see how the specific objectives, they can be seen in the general objective. So that was the introduction. The introduction of the first part, the first main part of the proposal. Remember that in the introduction, we talked about the background. We talked about the rationale, that why we're going to do this study. That's the importance. We talked about the problem statement, talked about the objectives. So there are many parts, but here in this study, we just talked about the importance parts of the introduction. So now let's see the second main part. This is the literature review. As you can see, the term is called literature, that we are reviewing the literatures. We are reading this, the literatures, the past information about the topic that we are going to research on. Sometimes this part is incorporated into the introduction, but just in the introduction, just putting just in just a brief in the introduction. But the materials that we need, we put them in the literature review, as you can read the literature review. So as you write the literature review, the literature review is helping us to ensure that what we want to do is new. Because when we write the literature review, we are telling people that what we are writing, what we want to research on is new, because we are presenting with evidence that this is what they have been, what has been written. So by writing the literature review, we are convincing others to say that what you're going to research on is new. Remember that the reviewer or the reader, they do not know what you're going to research on. So as we say that we're writing the proposal because we wanted to convince them. So when we write the literature review, we will be able to convince them that we know the area that you're going to study on, and what you're going to study is new because we have the evidence. Also, in writing the literature review, we are giving credit to those who have done research in your area before you. Because when we write the literature review, we are citing them, that who wrote this. So we are giving them credit. We appreciate the work that has been done by others. Also, we shows your knowledge of the problem. When you are writing the literature review, you're just convincing people that you're telling them that I know what I wanted to research on. And also shows your understanding of the theoretical issues related to your problem. And also it shows your ability to critically evaluate the literature information. That because we know that there are many literatures, but when you are when you are presenting the literatures that are related to your study, so you are telling them people that you are able to get about your study, and also you are critically evaluating them, that you have read and see that, hey, this is what is missing. And also it shows your ability to synthesize, that you have lots of information, you have lots of literatures, but you know how to organize different information. And also another importance of this literature review is it helps to provide a new conceptual framework for the research, that you can be able to provide when you say that conceptual framework, we're talking about the relation about your research, that relation with other studies, that maybe they research on this and this. So now it's like you are trying to present how they relate to each other, and where is your gap, where is the research gap. And also you are convincing the reader that your proposal research will make significant contribution to the literature. So this part is very important, because that's when we will know that the one who is going to do a certain research knows the area, because there are evidence. as you can see that why this literature review is important. You can have a look on that on this slide. Let's see some problems as researchers we normally face. There's this lacking of organization and structure. You may find that one is writing a literature review. So just putting everything that finds about that topic. You just get this, then you put in your literature review. But organization, that may be, so we need to find how to organize. So organizing is a problem. That's just to organize the information, because you have lots of information that you need to choose that this is what I need and this is not what I need. So it can be a problem. Also, sometimes we lack focus. We just put everything that we get, as I've said, that everything that we get, we put in the literature review. That has been a problem to many of us. Also, being repetitive. We may find that we are just repeating ourselves. Maybe in the problem statement, something is there in the background you have written. And again, here you're just repeating yourself. But also still in the literature review itself, you might find that we are repeating ourselves, that we have put this information. But again, maybe you find another study that is speaking the same. Then again, we rewrite again. Again, we put another literature that is speaking the same idea. Again, we put it. We may find that a literature review is very long, but is long, but what we have written there is just we are repeating ourselves. So that is a problem that we are facing. And also another problem is failing to quote influential, important papers. Sometimes you may find that one is writing a literature review and they are very good information, but there is no source of this information. There's no, maybe there's no quote that is an important information that maybe you can quote just to get the direct voice, but sometimes you may find that we are not quoting. So it's important sometimes to quote and then you put the reference. And also another thing is failing to keep up with recent developments. So we advise that in the literature review, sometimes it's good, of course, not sometimes, most of the time we need to consider the current, maybe the current information. You may find that maybe we are writing now in 2025, maybe you're using the information that we are written maybe 30 years ago. So sometimes it's good maybe to consider the current information, the recent information, so that you can build on that. Because when we use maybe the data that were maybe the information that were published maybe 10 years ago, and you say that that is the gap. So we may know that something has happened in between here. So we need to be current enough to know here is what they have researched on, so, and we wanted to continue where they ended. So that's why we need to do a thorough literature review so that we may know what is happening, what is currently on the market. So sometimes it's failing to critically evaluate the paper. We just take anything that is written in the papers. So, but it's good to evaluate and critically evaluate. That's what there's maybe what is written. What is the credibility of what is written? Not everything that is written we just take, but you need to critically evaluate the papers. Also, citing irrelevant or trivial references. For example, we may find that maybe we may take maybe just in Google, we just take anything from Google, but we need to just take the citing the relevant. For example, we need to take the published papers and maybe, yeah. So, and also another problem is depending too much on the secondary sources. That sometimes we may fail just to critically analyze the problem, but we just take what is just already written. We just take them and put without. So we're depending more on the secondary sources. So far we have seen that the proposal identified a particular problem, that in writing a proposal, we identify the problem, we ascertain the need for its study. That is a strong point, that we know the problem. Yes, we are telling the people that this is the problem with evidence in the proposal. But also, we are telling them the need to study on this problem. And also, we presented the desired objective, that we need to have objectives. So now it's time to tell how and when the objectives will be accomplished. So this is the third part of the methodology, that how are we going now to collect the information? So in here is the chapter 3, or the third main part of the proposal. This is called methodology. This is an important part too, because unless we tell them people that this is how we're going to collect data, or this is how we're going to get the information. For example, maybe you're looking for someone, maybe you're looking for a grant, someone to understand, maybe to give you the clearance that you go on the field and collect the data. So you needed to convince the person, or to convince the authority, that how are we going to do this study? It may not be maybe the data, maybe it can be an interventional study. So we need to tell them how we're going to get this information, how we're going to do this project, how we're going to do this research. For the quantitative, we normally have the hypothesis, that we have an idea, that we have proposed that maybe this is going to get. So now we're going to test the hypothesis. Hypothesis to be tested during data analysis. And also you're going to tell them, we need to explain the study design. Also the study area, where we're going to do this study. The study population. Let's say the study population, it may be the key respondents. Who are they? It can be maybe we're going maybe to a certain group of people. That's where you're going to get your information. Also, you need to tell us the sampling and variables that you're going to correct. Instruments, if particular one is used. Procedures, tools for data correction, data management and analysis, and also the evaluation plan, anticipated results, their potential impact, and application plans for dissemination. Maybe let's talk more about this. So when we begin with the first one, the hypothesis that we don't have a problem because we don't have the problem, but let's see the study design. In the study design, why do we need to have this study design? So we should have a purpose. That's the study design. We get the study design according to the purpose of the study. So depending on the purpose of the study, that's when we can decide that now we need to use this study design. For example, we just wanted to estimate the prevalence. that there is a certain problem, what is the prevalence of this problem? So here we can use a cross-sectional study. The cross-sectional study, you just go just at once and you get the information. But maybe your purpose is to determine the natural history and what has been happening before. So here you can use a cohort. Maybe you want to identify the causes, the risk factors, or people at risk. So here there are many here, so you can use a cohort, a case study, or cross-sectional study design. You wanted to prevent a disease. This is an interventional study. Or you wanted to at a cause of a disease. What is the source of this disease? You can use a randomized controlled trial. So study design, the choice of the study design depends on the purpose of the study. So as we choose, for example, you're writing a proposal, you're saying that I'm going to use the study type. So you need to justify. Why have you decided to use that study type? Another part in the methodology, we need also to explain the participant. The participant, sorry. We need to explain the participants. So depending on the type of the study, the following questions should be answered. When you think of the participants of the study, you need to say that what are the criteria for inclusion or selection? So we need to have the criteria as you think of selecting your participants. Also, you need to think of what are the criteria for the exclusion. Let me say a little bit about the inclusion and the exclusion. For example, maybe you're going in a secondary school. Meaning that you're going to say that maybe you're going to include it. The inclusion criteria maybe are the female students, maybe from Form 2 up to Form 4. So there's a mistake that we normally do, that we say that maybe the exclusion criteria will be maybe the Form 1 or will be the men. Let me repeat here that your inclusion criteria, for example, is that the female in Form 2, Form 3, and Form 4. And now, maybe you say that the exclusion is maybe the Form 5 and Form 6. This is very wrong, because the exclusion criteria should come out of the qualification of the participant that you have included. So you can say that these are the female of Form 2 and Form 3 and Form 4, maybe are sick, or just to give that the reason, but the characteristics should be, the broad characteristics should be
it's 19 hours.
What you have mentioned in the inclusion criteria. So another thing that you need to consider is in intervention studies, for example, that you say that the randomized trials, you need to think how will subject be allocated to index and comparison groups. So all this we need to think about, that how we're going to, for example, that you're going to do an intervention. So how are you going to allocate them? So just all the plans. I think the medical doctors, you know very well. And also we need to consider what are the criteria for discontinuation, that you have your participants. But sometimes we may start with the participant and then maybe need to discontinue, not to continue with them maybe in your study. So we need to explain again. So all this should be written as you write your participants. You give the information about your participants, or we say the study population. So another thing that we need to consider in the methodology, we need to have this sample size. So we need to have information on how many will be included in the study, how many will be recruited. But also when we know the number, we need to justify them. So not just any number, but there should be a justification. And for example, when we say that we need to get the required number, not large or not small, because a large sample size than needed to test the research hypothesis increases the cost and the duration. So when we have a larger sample, even the cost can be increased. So we need to think ourselves that, do we have this cost? But also, so the cost is increased just unnecessarily, but also the duration. You know that we need to save time. So we need to, not just the matter of saving time, but we need to there's no need to add the time that is not needed, or just to add the cost that is not needed. So we needed to get the sample size that is enough. And also, here there's an expression that the larger sample size of the study, of course, is unethical. That why do we need a sample size? So we need just the enough size. So we should make sure that the number that we have, that's why we have some calculations so that we can get the right number. Because when we exceed the number, it is of not use that we are working too hard, but the information that maybe that is not everything that is what we need. Just get the sample. And also, if the sample is small than needed, it can also be unethical. If it is exposed a human subject to risk with no benefit to scientific knowledge, that we may have a sample size that even what we get is not important because it's not enough. So as we think of the sample size, we need to consider that the sample should not be larger or should not be small. So the basis on which sample size is calculated should be explained. So in the methodology, we need to explain how we're going to get that sample. We need to have some calculation on how to get that sample. And also there are many formulas. We have many formulas that can help us to get the sample size. So let's see some tips of the methodology. So you can write the methodology, maybe using a graph, just for people to easily see, or you can write using a chart or figures, tables, whenever necessary for clarification. So it depends on what you are writing. You can write a table or anything that you see that your reader or your reviewers can easily see your methodology. Also, In the methodology, you will follow the chronological sequence of what you want to accomplish. So there should be a certain pattern that you want to accomplish as I've presented. Also in the methodology, we needed to write the deadline for completion of your study. And also objective and procedure should be consistent, and each objective must have a procedure. That in the methodology that you have objectives. So you need to write in every objective, how are you going to get the information that you're going to research on? For example, sometimes you may have some objectives. Maybe one you're using quantitative approach, and maybe other is qualitative approach. So that's why it is important to write in every objective. You write the information about every objective. So sometimes depending on maybe on the level of the research that you are doing, if it's for masters or for PhD, again, it depends. Also, you need to describe the logistics, that how are the logistics of your data collection? How are you going to get this information? Maybe you need to explain, maybe that, for example, maybe you're going to the community or to the certain hospital. What are the logistics that you're going to follow? Where are you going to start? Is there any authority maybe that is you're going to start with? And so you need to explain all this. The techniques that you're going to use in data collections. So you need to explain the tools. When you say tools, for example, you may say that you're going to use maybe a questionnaire. Questionnaire, if you are collecting the quantitative data. Or maybe you may use, there are these qualitative studies that are not used. Maybe for you as doctors, we not talk much about this. But this again, maybe you use this tool called in-depth interview. That you can just talking to people and you are recording, just recording their voice, and then you will analyze later. So this does not have to do with numbers. Also, we need to explain the data management. That, for example, now you're in the field, you have collected the data. How are you going to manage them? Or maybe someone will say that if I collect the data, maybe I will enter in the computer and then I will clean. So all these are the management of the data. So that people will be clear in how you're going to collect your data, and that your data are credible. Also, this should be adapted to the purpose of the study. That what is the purpose of your study? What do you want to achieve? Also in the methodology, we need to write the limitations and weaknesses of your study. So when we say limitations, we're not just talking any limitation, but we're going just to talk about the limitations that will hinder you from getting the required data. That maybe the information, maybe the factors in the field that will hinder you from getting the data that you're looking for. That's what we are talking about this. You're talking about the information that maybe will confound your data that you're going to correct. So let's see some examples in the methodology. For example, your project includes planning of a seminar. You should list methods of organizing, conducting a dissemination of the result of the seminar. Another example is if the study is collaborative, you're collaborating with others, you should list the names and addresses of the collaborators and refer to the letters of support from collaborators. So just write, the point here is that you're just writing all the information that your readers should know. Maybe you're doing a research, maybe it's part of a certain project. If there's a big project somewhere and just you're taking just a part of that project. So all this, the information should be written, should be known. There are other examples. Yeah, most of this we have already said, but maybe let me talk about the obtaining the consent. That as we correct the data, the information, we should go to the permission from different authorities. So we should not, for example, when we are getting information from human being, so they should give their consent. And also it's good to write the written, to get the written consent, so that even you can have evidence that these people were willing to be, to participate in the study. So we need to explain that you're going to get the consent. Also, but if there's protection procedures, just write anything that you're going to do. And also if there's possible risks and benefits to the participants, so we need just to explain. For example, in the other studies, you may find that maybe a person is doing a study and maybe say that maybe during the data collection, maybe I will just give them maybe the transport allowance. So we need to write anything. If there's benefit that they're going to get, we need to write. But if not, again, we need to explain. But of course, if we're doing a research, they're going to benefit. It may be direct or indirect. Because when you get the information about the problem, and maybe they're used by the authority, so they can change the situation, so they will benefit later. And also, you can state also in the provision in case of the withdrawal of the participants. So all we needed to explain that, for example, a participant has participated and then said that, for example, in the cohort, say that, okay, I'm not willing again to participate. So all this you need to explain that maybe you allow them to withdraw from the study because that's why you get their consent, that they should be willing to participate. For example, another example for the experimental research. So you should pose the hypothesis to investigate all questions to be asked and describe how data will be obtained. All this should be seen in your proposal. Also, there should be a discussion on how to control variables and confirmation of the validity of the instruments to be used. So this is more of the experimental studies. And also we need to explain the expected results in each step of the experiment. So for the experimental studies, the experimental research, we need to just explain in every step and what you're going to get in every step. Here is a table of the these are the information that you may include. That you need to know the age. For example, the age of the participant. This can be, we say that in the study, we need to put the variables. That the age, the family size should be known, because even the family size can affect the, maybe the information that you're looking for. And the family size, for example, the first column, we're talking about the variables, and the middle, we're talking about the indicator, also the scale of measurements. For example, we're talking about the family size. The family size here, you're just talking about the number of the family members. So you should indicate that you are collecting an information from one person, but also we need to know the environment of this person. So just say the number of the family members. And also, in terms of the use of clinic, so we may explain number of visits to clinic, hemoglobin. So all this about the intervention. So these are just different information that you needed to consider when doing this kind of study. It's more in the last column of the statistics. So the first column is conceptual definition of the variable, but we have the variable, you have the operational indicator, operational definition, or the indicator of the conceptual, on the concept, and also the scale of measurement. That's how we're going to measure. So that was the data collection. So let's see more about the data management and analysis. Again, this should be specified. The protocol, the proposal should provide information on how the data will be managed. This will include the data coding for computer analysis, monitoring, and verification. That's now you're from the field, you have your data. Now you need to explain how are you going to manage this data maybe before the analysis. For example, I said before that maybe you can say that you put into computer, you will clean, maybe you will organize it, you will organize in a certain way. Or you're going to do just maybe the verification that in every script, for example, do you have all the important information that you need? So it's like you're just cross-checking to know that everything is right. If maybe you need also to explain that, for example, you find that something is not, maybe it's not right. Are you going to go back to the field, or this should be explained? This is before the analysis. And also we should have the plan for analysis of the results. So this should be explained in our research proposal. That what is expected from the plan of the analysis. We need to explain the methods and models of data analysis according to the types of variables. That if you're going to analyze just depending on the variables that you are looking at. So we need to have the plan. And this should be according with the proposed objectives. And based on the types of the variables. So this will give you the plan on how you're going to analyze. So we need to investigate that the investigator or the researcher should specify how the variables will be measured and how they will be presented. Here, for example, here we have quantitative or qualitative. So we need to say that these are the quantitative and these are the qualitative. Remember that when we write the research proposal, we should know that what are the people that are reading, they do not know about your area. So you're telling them if these are quantitative or they are qualitative. Also, you need to indicate the analytical models, that how you're going to use the model. For example, in the qualitative, there are different models that you're going to use. For example, there's this sociological model. This is used more on the qualitative study. That this model explains that maybe a certain problem can be caused by different levels, from the individual, from the community. The community can influence the individual, what the individual is behaving, the community, so the organization. So there are many factors at different levels. So this is explained. So there are other models that you can just think which model you want to use. And also the techniques. For example, the statistical, the non-statistical. For the statistical, we're talking about the quantitative, and the non-statistical more is on the qualitative. So we need to explain all this. If the analysis you're going to use we're going to use the statistics, then we're going to explain, or maybe you're going to use a certain software of analysis. If it is statistics, you need to explain. Like you're going to use maybe what is statistics, or what software is going to be used in the analysis. For the quantitative, you can say maybe you're going to use maybe Starter. For the non-statistical, like the qualitative, maybe you're using it in vivo and so forth. So we need to explain how you're going to analyze your data depending on the type of information that you have. Also, the investigator should provide a preliminary scheme for tabulating the data, especially for variables that are presented in numerically. So as we analyze for the results, we need to get tables, because when we are presenting the results, we're not just explaining, because not people will be able to read everything that you have found. But when it's put in table, a person can understand better than when it's just in words. So we need to consider this in putting the tables. And also we need to put this biography, or we just say the references. And so you decide the type of referencing that you are using. You may find that there are many, we like to use this Vancouver style. So depending on the requirement of where you are submitting your proposal. So there's a link there that so we can get the information about this. So also we needed to include, so that was the methodology. So, and after that, we need also to put the appendices. The appendices, that these are the other related work that you're going to include in the proposal. For example, one can be the timetable. That we need to indicate the timetable or the work plan. That when are we going to do what? So a work plan is a schedule that summarizes in a clear fashion various components of a research project and how they fit together. So we just work the work. And also this it should include the various tasks to be performed, what you're going to perform, when, so the time when the task will be performed, and you write the who will perform the tasks. So for that, so that you can be clearly know that you're going to, that the work that you're going to do is doable. So just write the tasks and also the time, the timeline, and who is going to perform which task. For example, we say that maybe so depending on the kind of the study that you are doing, so you have different tasks, so you need to explain. So for example, here there's an example of the work plan. The example here that we have an activity. That maybe you're doing research in a clinical setting. Say that activity one is meeting with clinic staff who, so we say people who will be involved, and the time is indicated there. Maybe you're going to meet with the direct management. You're doing in a study maybe in a certain area that you need to meet with the management, because you can just not go in a certain area and you just call people and you wanted to do your research. You need to plan that maybe you're going to see with this management, maybe this time you're going to design your questionnaire. Say now the researcher, again, it is in this time, or you're going to train the field workers, because maybe you may have people to help you in the field. Remember that as a researcher, you're not to be able to do everything. So you need maybe the assistants, research assistants. So the research assistants should be trained. So you need to indicate the time. When are you going to train these people? So just to show the timeline that I'm going to train these people maybe in this time. So you say that people who will be involved are the researchers and the field workers. that as a researcher, you train maybe the people who will be working in the field. You write again another component that there's this data for maybe piloting the questionnaire. Sometimes before you go to the real study, you need to pilot the questionnaire. Piloting means that you're going to test your tool. If it is the questionnaire, you need to test this tool. You may just choose another area that is similar to where you're going to correct your data. You test if the questionnaire will work in your study. Then, this is before you go to the real study. So you need to indicate when are you going to test this questionnaire. But also, you need to indicate the data correction, for example. Just write that when are you going to do this data correction? So, and who is going to do the data correction? Here, for example, here it is written that the researcher and the field workers. And then the time is indicated there. Also, you write that the analysis, when are you going to do the analysis? Again, it is written also who is going to do the analysis, the researcher. For example, in the analysis of the qualitative study, in the qualitative study, it is discouraged to do just one researcher. They may just do 2 researchers. But for the quantitative, even one person can do the qualitative. For the quantitative study, even one person can do the analysis. But in the qualitative study, it is discouraged that at least 2 people can do the analysis separately and then compare the results. For example, another component here is meeting with the clinic staff and the district management. You've analyzed all the project staff that you have, all project staff, that your project includes staff. Again, write up full report. So the researcher, and that's again the time is indicated. Write article for updates and policy brief. Sometimes now you have found the information, but you have found that there's important information that you gained from your research. So you need to advise if it's the government. So just you write just in briefly what you found and your suggestion. Just write in a language that can be understood. So this is a policy brief. So just suggest what you think could be changed from what you researched. Lastly here that you're meeting with the clinic staff and the district management. Maybe again, you have finished your data collection, then you plan to meet with all that were involved, and maybe you can disseminate even your data that this is what we are doing, and this is what we found. So this is before you have gone to the field, because here we are just telling us what you are going to do. So this should be seen in your research proposal, that is the timeline. So what we're talking about in this timeline is to say that remember to state clearly who does what and for how long. And as you assign who will do what, you need to consider their competence and experience of all to be noted in the duration of their assignment. So this can be explained still in this, or you can just write it separately. But you need it not just you are just putting maybe some people who will be involved, but you needed to explain their competence. And if consultants are needed, maybe you are doing a research in an area that maybe you need to consult. You need consultants from other people. You need to state why they are needed. But also, you need to include other, as again, this is, remember that now we are in the appendices. This is, we are not in the main parts of the proposal, but these are the appendices. There's another appendix that is, we can include even the facilities. You need to let people, you need to let your reader know about your facilities that you're going to use. Yeah, for example, what are the facilities available for the study? That you wanted to do a certain study. Maybe you need a laboratory, or you need a computer, or you need an office. So this, you need to explain what are the facilities that are available for the study. Also need to describe special equipment of the laboratory space that might be used. So just write everything that you're going to use. If you are in need of other, you need just to explain. So justification for any additional item or services needed should be provided. Just write the information, maybe that you're going to get other items. If you need to use equipment or facilities of other organizations, you must document it as well as their availability to do so. So just write that maybe I'm going to take another equipment from this office. So just needed to explain, because we wanted to know if you are really able to do what you are proposing. You are convincing us that you are able to do what you have written. So needed to explain. Also, we need to think of the budget. That the budget is usually the last section. That after you have told all those, you need to say the budget. So no budget item should surprise a reviewer. So write what you think is required in your research. All project necessities should be itemized in detail. So just write anything that you think that you're going to use. But also, as you write, you need to be honest. Should not exaggerate what you're going to use. Maybe you're going just to use maybe this much. So just be honest of what you're going to use. So do not exaggerate, or should not write things that are not enough. A realistic estimate of project costs is good indication of your managerial ability. So when you write the realistic, if even the readers will know that you have the managerial ability, that you can manage even the money that you have. So for example, if maybe you're looking for a sponsor, you're writing a proposal that you may get a sponsor. So they may give you their format, but these are the important things to include. But generally in the budget, the thing that there are commonly that you need to include this direct cost, and there's indirect costs. When you talk about the direct cost, it's like you're talking the cost that will be used direct in the field and in the process. but the indirect costs like for just to but that you have the cost, for example, the administrative costs that maybe you are calling people to organize people. That's not the information that you are looking at, but they help you just in organizing your research. But also in the appendices, again, you need to include the information sheet and the consent form. The information sheet, you need to explain about your study, the aim of your study, the title, and also the consent form. This information sheet will be given to the participants so that they may know, because when you are looking for their consent, they should know about the study. So you need to get the information sheet that has all the information about your study and maybe how the study will be conducted, the research. And also you need to write the consent form, how it will be. The consent form is where they will sign to show that they have agreed to participate in the study. So the consent form should be included in the proposal. Also, documentation of additional to that in the proposal text. So we can just include everything. For example, maybe you have the questionnaires, they should be included. Maybe you have anything that you need to write. Maybe there is question guide you need just to put in the appendices. Maybe there's a letter, maybe a certain letter, maybe from different authorities. Yes, you need to include. You can include even your CV. I mean, a CV of maybe if there's a personnel that you are using, maybe that is involved in the study, you can just write just in brief. So all the extra materials should be included, should be for the readers to know. Let's see the common mistakes in the proposal writing. There's this failure to provide the proper context to frame the research question. So research question. Also, failure to delimit the boundaries for your research. That's why we say that the research proposal should be focused. For example, you say, for example, maybe you're talking about you're including maybe children. So just say that children of which age? Maybe children of which region? So are they boys or girls? So we need to put the boundaries. Also, there is failure to cite the important studies. You may find that one is writing a proposal, especially in the literature review, writing very good information, but there's no indication of the source of the information. So this is a common mistake in proposal writing. Also, failure to accurately present the contributions by other researchers. So that as we write proposals, others, they have written, especially when we are writing in the literature review in the part 2. So we need to say that, okay, this is what others have written, but what are their contribution into science? Not just they have written, but write what they have contributed. We normally forget to write the contribution of others. I mean, the importance of those information. We normally write, this is what we found, this is what they have written, but is there any contribution from what they have, from what has been written by others? So we normally forget to write. Also, failure to stay focused on the research question. Sometimes we may find that we have a research question, but when you go to other parts, we just include the other things that are not in the research question. So we need to focus on the research question. So the research question should be reflected in every part of the proposal, from the title, from the problem statement, from the objective. So should be reflected. Also, another mistake is failure to develop a current argument for the research question. That we have a certain research question, but we need to defend this research question. And also there's too much detail on minor issues, but not enough on the major issues. And how can we know that this is minor and this is major? So again, we can say that this is major depending on our research question, what we wanted to get, or the objective. Sometimes there is a temptation to focus on things that even are not the focus of this study or of the study that we are proposing. So this is another mistake. Also, there's too much rambling and no sense of direction. It's like we don't have any direction. We're just taking every information that they come to us. So, or we don't know where we are going and where we are coming from. And also there's too much citations, lapses, and incorrect references. You may find that there's this information, but it's the reference that maybe the citation that we put there is not correct. So that is a mistake. Also can be too long or too short. So this also can depend on the institution. We may find that the other institution, they may say that maybe in the introduction, we read maybe 2 pages, in the research review, maybe 4 pages. So it is helpful for the people who are writing research. So this is the end, but we needed to, let's just summarize of what we have said. We have said that we are writing a research proposal because we have an idea. Not only that we have an idea, but we know the context of that idea. That is helping us to know that this is a problem. So we are telling others that we are wanting to research on this study. So not only telling, we are just convincing them. So we need to consider the 3 main parts of a research proposal. And this is a introduction. In the introduction, we have the background information that we explain, the magnitude, we are in the introduction, we are explaining about the magnitude of the problem, who are affected, and where And also in the background, we should consider the geographical location. We begin with the broader geographical location, and then we narrow to where we want to do our study. Also the problem statement. We need to explain the real problem, the determinants, what are the reasons for that determinant, and what are the possible solutions. And then we show the gap. That's where we want to study, or we wanted to research on. We need to get a research question. The research question is reflected in the broad objective. And also we should have specific objectives. Also, we should have the literature review as the second key part of the research proposal, that we write what others have said about the research that you're going to do. This will show our competence, that we really know the research that you are going to study, that we are adding new information from where others have studied or from where others have presented. Also, the third is how we are going to get this information. This is the methodology. In the methodology, we explain the study area, we explain the study design, even the duration, the study population. Also, we need to explain the selection criteria, the sample size, how we're going to correct this data, the data procedures. Also, we need to explain about the analysis, the ethical consideration. This is the ethical consideration, that we get the consent from the participants, but also from the authorities. And so we need to explain the limitations of the study. Yeah, so this is, unless we have any question. So this is, the end of our session. And so I hope for now that we have had at least something on how we can write a research proposal, because it has some structures that we can follow.
Hello. Hello.
Hello?
Thank you very much, Madam, for the session. But the first session, probably due to network, but I have a question of how to calculate the sample size for the research. Can you please do a repetition there?
That's if I got you all this.
Yes, just how to calculate the sample size, especially using the official method, and how to estimate the sample size when someone is doing qualitative research. So that's my question.
In the sample size in the qualitative data, did I get you well? So
Yes, how to calculate the sample size using the official method, and how to estimate the sample size in qualitative research. Two questions.
Okay. So let me begin with the qualitative. In the qualitative, let me begin with the second part of the qualitative. So in the qualitative, first of all, we should know that in the qualitative, we use a small sample size. So it can be maybe even 10 people can be enough. But how do we get these 10 people? We get these 10 people when we reach the saturation point. This one is very important, the saturation point. That the saturation point is where you reach that there is no any new information. So when you're doing the qualitative, you go to the field, and maybe to the first person, you get the information. You get the second person again, you get the information. Just get new information. So until you find that there is no new information, so until you reach this point, that is when you can know that this is my sample size. So you can go to the field, even you do not know how many are going to be involved in the field. So when you're writing the proposal, you need to indicate that the sample size will be determined by the saturation point. So that you will collect the data up to where there's no any new information. So for the qualitative data. Have I answered your question? Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you very much. And how to calculate in the quantitative data?
Okay, in the quantitative data, there are some formulas that they use to calculate. For example, this Kishli, which is normally it is used. So this you can use this to get the sample. So it depends on which formula that you use, but you may find that the others, they say that maybe for the good sample size. So it can be, it will depend. Maybe others, they use maybe 1/10. So it depends on the kind of information that you are looking at. But this will be determined on the kind of formula that you are using. Yeah, so for now, I can talk more about this qualitative, but for the quantitative, it depends on the formula that you are using, and this is can be explained more, but by the statistics, the people who are good in the statistics. Okay. Hello.
Yes, I is a question like how many formulas are there? What are the best formula to use when doing quantitative analysis?
Sorry, I don't know. I can get you. Can I hear well? Can you come up again, please?
Like how many formulas can be used in quantitative analysis for us undergraduates, and what is the best formula for us as undergraduate students to do in our research projects?
Okay, for the for the statistics, I think I'm not that deep, but for the undergraduates, for the cross-sectional study, it's advisable to use this.
It's 20 hours.
I mean, the Kishli is commonly used to calculate the sample size. For the, maybe just frankly speaking, I can, for the quantitative, I'm not doing, my focus is not more on the quantitative, but I do more on the qualitative studies. Maybe for this, for the people with the statistics can explain more that how many are there, but for the qualitative, I can say more about the qualitative. So for the quantitative, I may not have the all the required information, but Kishri, you can start with, or if you're doing a cross-sectional study.
So, sorry, Dr. Pendo. So, to answer Joanna, there is also a session in methodology by Prof. Kidenya. So, we go deeply about how to get a sample size and which formula is based in sample size. But today, this is enough because today was about to get out on a bit overview on how to write a proposal. So, Dr. Joanna, don't worry. There is also a session about it.
Okay, yeah, okay, thank you. I think, yes, yeah, Dr. Kidenya will be good in this area.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I have a question
Basing
on the plan workflow, how it's going to be conducted. Now, I want to ask you what if what you have planned does not go as how you have planned? What are you going to do now?
Okay, again, this is a tentative plan, because that's why when you are writing, you write in the limitation, and you are writing a report. So this is a tentative plan that you are planning, that you will follow this. Yes, that happens. It is commonly happens, because sometimes you're going to the field and you don't get the people that you are planning to meet. So this will be in your limitation. When you are writing a report, maybe the person who will tell you about the report writing will be able to explain on this. So this, you just see how you will deal with this problem, and then you're going to, when you are writing the report, you will explain that one of the limitation is that maybe I expect to finish in this time, but I could not finish because of this, and then you will explain how you dealt with that limitation. But again, it's not in this part of the research proposal, because in the research proposal, you're just writing what you will do, but you have not gone to the field and see that this plan will not work, that we have not reached there. So here you're just writing. We are not, you don't know what will happen in the field. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Another question?
Hello, doctor.
If someone in the quantitative stage denies of being recorded, may it be a criteria of being removed from the study?
And in the quantitative study, we normally do not record in the quantitative study, because you may find that we are using the questionnaire. So the questionnaire, you just have your papers and you are writing and you are, yeah. So you are just writing the information in the quantitative. But again, we record in the qualitative, but we do not force a person to be recorded. That's why you need to explain that. That's why you say that you need to put the information sheet, that I'm going to do qualitative study and I'm going to, would like to record you. Do you agree to be recorded? So, yes, so the person has to consent. And then after the person accepts, you need to give this consent form for that person to sign. But if the person does not want to be recorded, I think you cannot, you may choose not to include that person in the, you may choose not to include in the study, because how again are you going to analyze your information if you have not recorded for the qualitative study? But for the quantitative, there's no, that's needed. Depends maybe on this kind of study. But the point here is, you should not force a person you should not force to record a person without his or her consent. If the person does not want to be recorded and you really want this record, you better drop that person. That's clear? Hello?
Yeah, great.
The other question from Wanga.
Yes, thank you, Doctor, for your presentation. I would like to know if you can repeat a little bit about the difference between cross-sectional study and a cohort study. That's the question number one. Question number two, I want to know how many specific objectives I have to write. Is the part of objective or the objective part, especially the specific objective, how many I have to write? May I write 10, 5, 4, 3, or even 2 specific objective I can write? Thank you.
Okay. Okay, maybe let me start with the cross-section. The question that says the difference between the cross-sectional and the cohort.
Cohort.
Yes. So for the cross-sectional, we say that this is like a snapshot study. We just go at once and then you get the information that you need. For example, you may say that now you're going maybe to collect the data, maybe from a certain just group. So just maybe go just today, you just meet with that people, you get the information, and then you finish with that people. You not to go back to that people. So the information that you give, you get at one time, there will be enough. So we say that this is it's like a snapshot. You just go at once, and then you get all the information that you need. That you do not go back to this person. Okay? That is a cross-section. So just go one time. But in the cohort study, you just find a group of people with common characteristics. So, and then you follow up. For example, maybe you just take a certain group. So you interview today, maybe you get the information from them, and again, you come back to the certain to the same study, maybe after a certain time, maybe after 1 year, to see if there's any change has happened. So it's like you are just taking the history. So it's like it's a follow-up study. You just have a group and then you are following up. Okay. For example, hello? Maybe you have a certain group and you have done maybe a certain intervention. And then after 1 year, you go back to the same group and see what is the outcome from what you did. So Jana can say that a cohort study, just you have a group, that's why you're saying that it's a cohort. You have the same group and then you are following up. That's why you're saying that if you wanted to get a history, you use a cohort study design. Another question was, what was the second question, please?
The second question was about the specific objective, how many have written.
So, okay, again, depends on your objective, but normally the average is 3 specific objectives. You can find the others, they can go to 4 objectives, or others can go maybe to 2 objectives. But for the undergraduates, we advise them to have at least 3 objectives. But for the PhD, maybe they can have maybe 4 objectives or 5. So for the undergraduates, it's 3 specific objectives, they are advisable. The last question was,
You have answered all of my question. Thank you.
okay, you're welcome.
So, Dr. Pendo, there
Yes,
is
please.
also other question in the chat box. Someone is asking for the methodology during data collection, are there recognized formats and documents with questions that direct participants to fill? For example, special form for depression or readiness for an intervention. Or should
Yes.
every researcher start from scratch?
Yes, no. There are others that you needed to form your questions depending on your objectives, but there are others they can just follow the maybe they already developed questionnaires. For example, the WHO, it has some guides that people use. So can you answer that? There are others that you can make yourself, but others you can just adopt certain guide and use that. For example, the WHO, they have different guides that you can use. For example, there's this research that I've seen current that people are doing. It's on the, anyway, I've forgotten the name, but yeah, that's the answer. That not always that you need to go to from the scratch, but you can use the already developed guides.
Thank you. Also, there is a question here.
Yes, please.
So, can I understand in detail the difference between research proposal and the project proposal?
Okay, research proposal
and the project proposal.
and the project. Okay, in the research proposal, it's like you, most of them use the research proposal that there's information that there are information that you maybe you have there's something that is not known. So you want to get the information. For example, you have done that you have done a literature review, and you see that there is something that I needed to research on. So that is a research proposal. But example, if it's a project, maybe can be maybe an intervention that you want, maybe to do a certain intervention, maybe. So you can say that a project is broad, but a research you're just looking for new information. But a project, maybe you're just it can include some intervention, and this is broad. Can include some information, or just doing interventions. Yeah, but still also in the research also you can do intervention when you are using a randomized trial. You can do the information, but in the, I can say just generally that research you're looking for new information, but in the project this is broad, and you are focusing more on the interventions.
So I think there is no other question in the chat box. Maybe if there's other one who want to ask a question before we end, because we are now at 8:15. So anyone raised the question before we end up?
Oh.
If there isn't, we can end up with.
And thank you. Okay, sorry. Before we end up here, I cannot see how many were there. How many are we in this now?
Well, we are about 90,
Okay.
but we are about 40 during the first hour. So I think others have left.
Okay, so the others.
Others have left.
Okay. Thank you.
So I think there's no other question.
Mm.
Maybe let me take this time to thank you, Dr. Pendo, for your time. And thank you for this insightful session. We've learned a lot and hope we shall use what we have learned in our activities, for example, writing research proposal. And we would like to learn more from you if we can get a time and the other session with you in the future. And also, since this program is other objectives find mentors, so we can ask you, Dr. Pendo, if you are available, because there are other people here who would like to be mentored by you and get any help from anywhere. So if you are able, you can just provide maybe an email for them to consult. And after the end, we'd like also to get these slides for more review, even after the session, if that is not open.
Okay, you're welcome. Maybe I can send them email or yeah. So you're welcome for consultation, and I focus more on the qualitative.
Okay.
But it's still in the quantitative too. And I'm saying that for the consultation, you are welcome. And for the qualitative, I focus more on the qualitative, though I can still even consider even the other areas.
Thank you. Also, there's someone here requesting if we can provide a research proposal, example for research proposal for them to look at the template.
Okay.
If you have one.
Okay. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I can provide. I'm wondering that if yeah, yes, I can still provide, although it may not be today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We should be thankful for that. So maybe you can just help us type your email here at the chat box for them to get through, so they can get consultation from you. And also, I think maybe if you have a last remark to us on this journey in research, maybe something to advise us, maybe something to give us before we close the session.
Okay. I think I just like your this program that we have started. I don't know if we have started now, that of learning, because learning does not end. We daily learn. So this is a good attitude. So continue to learn. So yeah, so that's what I can say. And thank you for your participation. Thank you for your questions. This also, they're helping me also.
Okay, thank you. You have helped us a lot. And this is not our first program. We usually do this year.
Okay. So you do every year.
Yeah.
So okay. How many days in a year?
For example, for this month, for this year we just have a training for 4 weeks.
Okay.
is, yeah.
Okay, daily. Okay, daily. In
no,
those
just
weeks?
just Friday, Saturday, and Sunday
Okay.
every week, and we started this Friday, and we shall end up at the 8th February.
Okay. Okay, thank you.